We have been told a lie for generations. We've been conditioned to believe that the smartest person in the room wins. We look at high IQ scores, prestigious degrees, and brilliant strategic thinkers, and we assume that their success is guaranteed. But if you look closely at the world around you, you will notice a deeply uncomfortable truth. There are countless brilliant, highly educated, and incredibly smart people who are completely stuck. They are losing at life, not because they lack capacity, but because they are trapped by their own intelligence. You see, intelligence is just potential energy. It is like having a high-performance sports car sitting in a garage with a full tank of gas. It has all the capability in the world to break records and move at incredible speeds. But if nobody ever turns the key, pushes the pedal, and drives it out into the chaotic, messy world, that car is completely useless. It does nothing. It goes nowhere. In the real world, life does not reward what you know. Life rewards what you do with what you know. Smart people often suffer from a unique affliction called analysis paralysis. Because their brains can process information deeply, they can see every single variable, every potential failure, and every risk associated with a decision. They spend months, sometimes years, perfecting a plan, waiting for the perfect moment and mapping out the perfect strategy. But perfection is an illusion, and the perfect moment never arrives. While the genius is still sitting in their room refining the theory, someone with half their intelligence but twice their drive has already launched, failed, made mistakes, learned from those mistakes, adjusted, and moved ahead. Action creates clarity, whereas overthinking only creates fear. This brings us to a fundamental misunderstanding about progress. True progress is inherently messy. It requires you to step into the unknown, to look foolish, and to risk failure. For a highly intelligent person, looking foolish is terrifying. Their entire identity is often built on being right, on having the answers, and on being the smartest person in the room. This makes them risk-averse. They would rather protect their status of being smart by doing nothing than risk their ego by trying something new and failing publicly. They choose the safety of their current comfort zone over the discomfort of execution. But innovation, growth, and fulfillment do not live in the comfort zone. They require courage, and courage is not an intellectual exercise. Courage is a behavior. If we want to change this pattern, we have to change what we value. We must stop romanticizing pure intellect and start celebrating consistency, execution, and resilience. It is wonderful to have a great idea. It is wonderful to understand complex policies. And it is wonderful to have a grand vision for a YouTube channel or a business. But a vision without execution is just a hallucination. The individuals who actually impact the world, the ones who build lasting things and find deep fulfillment, are not always the ones with the highest test scores. They are the ones who are willing to wake up every single day and do the heavy lifting, even when they don't have all the answers. If you consider yourself a smart person, or if you have a brilliant idea inside you, understand that your intelligence alone will not save you. Do not let your mind become a prison of unexecuted ideas. Break the cycle of endless planning, lower your ego, accept that the first attempt might be messy, and take the first step. Because at the end of the day, a flawed action will always beat a perfect thought. Fev keynotes of the speech, potential vis execution, intelligence is merely potential energy. It holds no real-world value until it is translated into concrete physical action. The trap of analysis paralysis: highly intelligent individuals often overthink risks and variables, leading to stagnation, while less analytical, action-oriented people progress through trial and error. Ego and the fear of failure. Smart people often avoid taking action because their identity is tied to being right, making the prospect of making mistakes and looking foolish too terrifying to risk. Clarity comes from movement. Perfect conditions do not exist, and certainty cannot be thought into existence. Clarity and learning only happen once execution begins. Vision without action is a hallucination. The world is shaped and won not by those with the best unexecuted ideas, but by those who possess the discipline and consistency to do the daily, messy work. Potential vis execution is the ultimate dividing line between those who merely dream and those who actually build a life of impact. We live in a culture that deeply romanticizes raw talent, high IQ, and brilliant concepts. From a young age, we are taught to praise the smartest kid in the class, the person with the sharpest insights, or the one who can formulate a flawless argument in seconds. But this praise creates a dangerous illusion. It leads us to believe that intelligence itself is a currency that can be spent in the real world. The reality is much harsher. Intelligence, talent, and brilliant ideas are nothing more than potential energy. In the study of physics, potential energy is the energy stored within an object because of its position or state. A boulder sitting at the very top of a high cliff possesses immense potential energy. It has the capacity to shatter things, to alter the landscape, and to generate massive force. But as long as it just sits there, perfectly still on the edge of the cliff, its actual impact on the world is exactly zero. It changes nothing. It produces nothing. It is a dormant force. This is precisely how human intellect operates without execution. You can have a mind capable of understanding complex geopolitical systems, a brain that can map out a multi-million-dollar business model in an afternoon, or a creative vision for a YouTube channel that could genuinely change thousands of lives. But if those thoughts never leave the confines of your skull, if they never manifest into a physical action, they do not exist to the rest of the world. The world cannot feel your thoughts. The market cannot buy your unwritten strategy. Your audience cannot watch a script that lives only in your head. The universe does not reward potential, it only rewards kinetic energy, which is energy in motion. When you look at the people who are genuinely winning at life, the ones creating sustainable success, you quickly realize they are not always the ones blessed with the highest natural intellect. Instead, they're the ones who understand how to convert their potential into kinetic momentum. There is a specific kind of arrogance that highly intelligent people often fall into, where they believe that because an idea is clear and perfect in their mind, they have already achieved something. They mistake the clarity of their thought for the reality of execution. They look down on the simpler, less intellectual people around them who are out there working hard, failing and trying again. Yet, it is those very people, the ones who may not have a perfect plan but possess an unstoppable bias toward action, who end up moving the world forward. A flawed, messy, imperfect action taken by someone with average intelligence will always achieve infinitely more than a flawless, masterfully designed strategy kept in the notebook of a genius who is too afraid to start. Execution is the bridge that connects the internal world of imagination with the external world of reality. Without that bridge, your intelligence becomes a heavy burden rather than a gift. It becomes a source of deep frustration and bitterness because you see others who are less qualified or less capable achieving the very goals you have spent years intellectualizing. To break out of the trap of unexecuted potential, a person must shift their entire value system. You must stop deriving your self-worth from how smart you are or how great your ideas are and start measuring yourself by what you actually produce. This requires a profound level of humility. It means accepting that when you convert potential energy into kinetic energy, the transition is going to be incredibly messy. The boulder rolling down the hill does not move in a straight, elegant line. It crashes into trees, kicks up dust, breaks apart, and makes a chaotic mess. That is exactly what action looks like. The first script you write might be clunky, the first video you upload might get 0 views, and your first business venture might fail completely. But that failure is tangible reality, and tangible reality gives you data that you can actually use to learn, adapt, and grow. Unexecuted potential gives you absolutely nothing to work with. It leaves you spinning your wheels in a vacuum of perfectionism. If you want to stop losing at life, you have to stop sitting on the edge of the cliff admiring your own capacity. Turn the key, push the pedal, and force your intellect out into the chaotic, unpredictable terrain of the real world. Your thoughts mean nothing until you move. The trap of analysis paralysis is perhaps the most tragic consequence of a highly developed intellect. When a person is blessed with a sharp mind, their brain naturally functions like a high-powered supercomputer, capable of processing hundreds of variables, calculating risks, and predicting future outcomes with incredible speed. On paper, this sounds like a massive competitive advantage. In reality, it often becomes a psychological prison that paralyzes the individual completely. The more intelligent a person is, the more possibilities they can envision. They don't just see step A and step B, they see the entire alphabet, along with 30 different ways each step could go wrong. They see the market shifts, the potential criticisms, the technical failures, the financial risks, and the personal embarrassments. Because they can see all these potential pitfalls so clearly, a profound sense of anxiety begins to take root. They convince themselves that the only way to safely move forward is to eliminate all uncertainty. They believe that if they just gather a little more data, read one more book, study the YouTube algorithm for one more week, or refine their strategy just one more time, they will finally achieve the perfect conditions required to launch. But this is the ultimate intellectual delusion. Perfect conditions do not exist in the real world, and they never will. By trying to think their way out of risk, smart people end up thinking their way out of action. This endless cycle of overthinking completely distorts a person's relationship with time and progress. While the highly intelligent individual is sitting in a room, deeply engrossed in a months-long intellectual exercise to design a flawless, risk-free plan, the world around them keeps moving. Someone with half their intellectual capacity, someone who doesn't possess the ability to foresee every single complication, simply picks up a tool and begins. This action-oriented person doesn't wait for clarity. They understand intuitively that clarity is a consequence of movement, not a prerequisite for it. They launch their flawed project, they upload their imperfect video, or they start their messy business. Predictably, they encounter the very problems that the smart person foresaw. They make mistakes, they look foolish, and they take a few hits. But because they are already active in the real world, they receive immediate, tangible feedback. They learn what actually works and what doesn't, allowing them to adapt, pivot, and improve in real time. By the time the genius has finalized their perfect, multi-page theoretical strategy, the practitioner has already failed 3 times, learned 3 invaluable lessons, and built a functional, revenue-generating reality. The practitioner has outpaced the genius not through superior thinking, but through superior momentum. Analysis paralysis also creates a false sense of productivity that keeps smart people trapped for years. Spending 8 hours a day researching, planning, organizing spreadsheets, and tweaking designs feels like hard work. It satisfies the brain's desire for stimulation and gives the individual the comforting illusion that they are making progress. But this is merely a sophisticated form of procrastination. It is a defense mechanism used to avoid the vulnerability of real-world execution. Planning is safe. In the world of pure thought, your ideas are always perfect, your videos are always hits, and your strategies always succeed. The moment you take action, however, you invite reality to judge you. You face the very real possibility of 0 views, financial loss, or social rejection. To protect their egos from this harsh confrontation, Intelligent people subconsciously extend the planning phase indefinitely. They become professional preparers, always getting ready to start, but never actually starting. They mistake the movement of their thoughts for the movement of their lives. If you want to break free from this paralyzing trap, you must accept that you cannot think your way into a great life. You can only build it through execution. You must intentionally lower your standard for the first attempt and accept that early action will always be deeply flawed. True wisdom lies in knowing when to shut off the analytical mind, stop looking at the map, and finally take the first step into the fog. Ego and the fear of failure form an invisible, deeply entrenched barrier that prevents some of the most intelligent minds from ever achieving their true potential. From a very early age, highly capable individuals are often labeled as the smart ones, the gifted ones, or the ones who have it all figured out. While this praise feels validating, it quietly implants a dangerous psychological trap. The individual begins to tie their entire sense of self-worth, identity, and value to this perception of being flawless and intellectually superior. They become deeply invested in maintaining the image of the person who always has the answers, who doesn't make mistakes, and who navigates life with effortless competence. Consequently, this fragile intellect-based ego transforms into a defensive shield that violently rejects any situation where they might look foolish, incompetent, or amateurish. Because taking action in the real world, whether it is launching a new business, creating a YouTube channel, or learning a complex new skill, inherently requires you to start at the absolute bottom. It poses a direct existential threat to their identity. To execute means to risk failing publicly, and to fail publicly means their carefully constructed illusion of intellectual dominance will be shattered. This hyperfixation on protecting the ego breeds an intense aversion to risk. When faced with a choice between staying in a comfortable environment where they are already recognized as capable or stepping into a new arena where they will be judged as beginners, smart people almost always choose safety. They rationalize this hesitation through intellectual arguments, claiming they are simply waiting for a better market, more capital, or a more sophisticated strategy. But if you peel back those layers of sophisticated excuses, you find raw, unadulterated fear. They are absolutely terrified of the discomfort that comes with incompetence. They cannot bear the thought of putting their best ideas out into the world only to receive silence, criticism, or rejection. For an intelligent person, a low view count on a video, a rejected proposal, or a failed launch isn't just a business setback. It feels like a definitive verdict on their actual intelligence. To avoid this painful blow to their self-esteem, they subconsciously decide that it is far better to protect their reputation by doing nothing at all. They comfort themselves with the thought that they could easily succeed if they wanted to, keeping their brilliance safely locked away in the realm of theory where it can never be tested, judged, or defeated. This defensive mechanism ultimately forces intelligent individuals to become spectators in their own lives. They sit on the sidelines, watching less capable, less analytical people take messy actions, make public blunders, and repeatedly stumble. In the short term, the smart observer feels a sense of smug superiority, pointing out the flaws and mistakes in the practitioner's work. They think to themselves how much better they could do it if they actually tried. But as time passes, a bitter reality sets in. The practitioner, unburdened by the need to appear perfect, treats every public failure as a cheap lesson. They grow thicker skin, build resilience, adapt their methods, and slowly but surely build real-world momentum. Meanwhile, the genius remains entirely unchanged, frozen in the exact same spot, possessing the exact same unexecuted ideas, but with an ego that has grown even more brittle from a lack of exercise. True growth, innovation, and success require a willingness to shed the heavy armor of your ego and embrace the profound humility of being a beginner. You must give yourself permission to produce bad work initially, to ask basic questions, and to let people see you struggle. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to look foolish in service of a vision that is greater than your own pride. Until an intelligent person learns to value execution over validation and progress over perfection, their mind will remain a beautiful, gilded cage that keeps them entirely insulated from the life they are truly capable of living. Clarity comes from movement, never from stillness. One of the greatest mental traps that highly intelligent individuals fall into is the belief that they can think their way into certainty. They assume that if they sit in a room long enough, analyze enough data, map out enough contingencies, and mentally simulate every possible scenario, they will eventually reach a point of absolute clarity where the path forward is perfectly illuminated and risk is entirely eliminated. This is a monumental cognitive error. Certainty cannot be manufactured in a vacuum of pure thought. The real world is a chaotic, fluid, and highly unpredictable environment that completely defies abstract logic. No matter how brilliant you are, you cannot accurately predict how a live market will react to a product, how a real audience will respond to a YouTube video, or how your own psychology will handle the pressure of actual execution until you are actively in the game. When you remain stationary, attempting to figure everything out before you start, your mind does not actually gain clarity. It simply generates a massive volume of theoretical noise. You begin to mistake the complexity of your own thoughts for actual insight, spinning your wheels in a state of hyper-analytical gridlock. True clarity is not a prerequisite for starting. It is a direct consequence of movement. Think of driving a car through a dense fog at night. If you sit at the edge of the road waiting for the fog to completely clear before you drive, you will be sitting there forever. The only way to see further down the road is to turn on your headlights and start driving forward. As you move, the next 30 feet of the road are revealed to you, and as you cover those 30 feet, the next 30 feet become visible. This is precisely how progress works in life and business. The moment you take a concrete physical action, regardless of how small or imperfect it might be, the entire landscape changes. Action shifts your perspective from an abstract observer to an active participant. By launching a flawed prototype, publishing a raw piece of content, or pitching an incomplete idea, you immediately crack open the shell of theory and step into reality. The universe instantly responds to your movement by feeding you real, unvarnished, and actionable data. You learn things that no textbook, seminar, or mental exercise could ever teach you. You discover what actually resonates, what fails catastrophically, and what needs to be adjusted. This dynamic feedback loop is where genuine wisdom is born. When you are in motion, your mistakes cease to be existential crises and instead become valuable data points. If a video you upload receives poor engagement, you don't theorize about why. You look at the real time retention graphs, analyze the comments, and immediately adjust your hook or pacing for the next one. This real-world interaction sharpens your intuition and builds a level of practical competence that cannot be replicated by passive study. Highly intelligent people often possess an immense amount of knowledge, but they lack this practical intuition because they refuse to move without a guarantee of success. They stay frozen, waiting for a perfect map of a terrain that is constantly changing. Practitioners, on the other hand, understand that the map is not the territory. They accept that the path will be winding, unpredictable, and messy, but they possess the confidence to know that they can figure out the next step once they get there. Movement breaks the spell of overthinking by forcing your brain to focus on immediate, tangible problem solving rather than distant, hypothetical anxieties. If you want to dissolve the doubt and fog surrounding your goals, you have to stop looking for answers in your head. Lower your expectations for a perfect start, accept the inherent uncertainty of the unknown, and understand that you will only find your footing once you actually start walking. Vision without action is a hallucination. This profound truth cuts straight to the heart of why so many incredibly gifted, creative, and intelligent individuals find themselves losing at life. It is remarkably easy to confuse a beautiful internal vision with an actual, tangible achievement. When you possess a sharp, imaginative mind, you can close your eyes and see a flawless future with staggering clarity. You can visualize the massive YouTube channel with millions of engaged subscribers, the revolutionary business that completely disrupts an entire industry, or the highly disciplined lifestyle where you are perfectly optimized, healthy, and successful. The brain treats these vivid mental images as incredibly real, releasing a rush of dopamine that makes you feel a profound sense of pride and accomplishment simply for having imagined it. But this is a psychological trap. A vision in your mind, no matter how noble, brilliant, or grand it might be, holds absolutely no weight in the physical universe. The world is completely indifferent to what you intend to do, what you are capable of doing, or what you plan to build someday. The world only cares about what you actually have the discipline to execute. When an individual falls into the habit of romanticizing their pure intellect and vision without a corresponding dedication to labor, they become a professional dreamer. They live in a perpetual state of tomorrow, constantly talking about their next big project, their grand strategy, or their hidden genius, while their current reality remains completely stagnant. This disconnect breeds a deep, toxic frustration. They look at the cultural landscape and see people who are far less intellectually sophisticated achieving massive success, gaining financial freedom, and building real influence. They react with bitterness, dismissing those successful individuals as lucky, superficial, or undeserving. What the frustrated genius fails to understand is that the universe does not reward the best idea. It rewards the person who shows up every single day to do the heavy lifting. The individuals who actually shape our world, who build sustainable companies, write timeless scripts, and cultivate deep personal fulfillment are not always the ones with the highest test scores or the most breathtaking initial concepts. They are the ones who possess the rare, grit-driven stamina to transition from the intoxicating high of a new idea into the mundane, repetitive, and often boring reality of daily execution. To bridge the massive chasm between a hallucination and a reality, a person must develop a deep respect for the unglamorous nature of consistency. A grand vision is built out of incredibly small, messy, and unremarkable pieces. It is built out of writing a single sentence when you feel completely uninspired, editing a video frame by frame late at night when your eyes are burning, or making uncomfortable cold calls when your ego is screaming at you to stop. It requires you to show up and perform when the initial excitement of the idea has completely vanished, and you are left with nothing but raw discipline. Smart people often quit during this phase because they believe their intellect should exempt them from this kind of tedious, grinding labor. They want the breakthrough without the buildup. But execution is a non-negotiable tax that reality levies on every single dream. If you are unwilling to pay that tax through consistent physical effort, your vision will eventually curdle into a source of regret, serving as a constant reminder of what you could have been rather than what you actually are. You must intentionally strip away the romance of being a visionary and embrace the identity of a practitioner. Stop waiting for the perfect flash of inspiration. Stop overcomplicating your strategy and stop hiding behind the safety of your own potential. Bring your head down out of the clouds of abstract theory and ground your feet firmly in the dirt of hard, continuous action. Your brilliant ideas are entirely worthless until you match them with an equally brilliant work ethic. Ultimately, the greatest tragedy of human potential is a life spent entirely inside the safety of your own mind. We must stop treating intelligence as a final destination and start recognizing it for what it truly is: a starting line, a brilliant thought. An immaculate plan or a grand vision for your life means absolutely nothing if it never crosses the boundary into physical reality. The world is full of highly intelligent individuals who are sitting on the sidelines watching less analytical, more courageous people build the future. They are losing at life not because they lack capacity, but because they have chosen the comfort of perfection over the beautiful, chaotic mess of execution. If you want to win, you have to change what you value. You have to lower your ego, step out of the prison of analysis paralysis, and give yourself permission to start poorly. Stop waiting for the fog to clear. Stop waiting for the perfect strategy, and stop hiding behind your potential. True wisdom is found in the dirt of hard daily action, not in the sterile clouds of abstract thought. Trust your capacity to figure things out as you move. Turn your thoughts into kinetic momentum and take that very first step. Because when the dust settles, history is never written by those who had the best unexecuted ideas. It is written by those who had the courage to act.